Also communicating, letting everybody in the district know when we get to that point, or if we're already in that point, making sure all the parents, all the community members know that we need bus drivers. And I mean, maybe nobody will volunteer, maybe there'll be a couple volunteers, but just really communicating the needs, and also letting people know that, you know, the school does pay for the testing that's required and everything to get started as a bus driver.
Okay, John.
I think that started with me, didn't it?
Did that start with?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that started. So has everybody commented?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so now this one's going to start with Bobby. I got confused there because we got a little bit out of order. Okay, Bobby, how do you plan? Now this is a kind of a question that's been posed before. How do you plan on improving communication between concerned citizens, parents, and the board?
Again, just by being available to the parents, the community, having your email, a phone number where they can contact you, and just make sure that you do respond to their questions or their concerns.
I would like to see the public discussion item on the agenda at the school board meetings actually open for public concerns to be addressed at that time, so that you could walk in and write your name down, and if you had a concern that popped up that day, you would be able to address the board on any concern. Also being open and communicate anytime, you know, at least with I don't have any time to respond right now, or I can't answer that question, please do this. Just being there for everybody. That's why I want to improve that.
Yes, we have the public items of discussion, you know, at the beginning of the meetings. I have to ask for, does it have to pertain to an issue on the board, Mr. Foster, Scott?
According to our policy.
Okay, according to our board policy, it has to pertain to an issue that's on the agenda for that meeting. Yeah, so by following board policy, that's what we do. If it's on the agenda, you know, the public can ask questions about it. That doesn't mean the board has to respond to those questions at that point. But yes, we should get back to you, you know, find out an answer, get back to you, and go from there. So I guess we've got the opportunities. Like I say, my phone number's out there. You know, you call me, whatever. That's happened numerous times, and I think any of the board members would be more than willing to talk to anybody about what's going on at the school.
Okay, John.
And like I said before, I don't email, so that's why you're better off to call me if you have a question or whatever. And as far as the board meetings, I think you can't just come in and write your name and speak. You got to be on the agenda, you know, because otherwise the board meetings could go all night long. And we've had long board meetings without that involved. So I mean, you just got to follow policy and, you know, be on there 24 hours, I believe it is, or 48.
Yeah, 24 hours.
24 hours before if you have some concern.
Can I say one thing? No.
You didn't take your, go ahead, one more thing.
Okay.
Make it quick.
You're getting well, on the board, the recommendations from the state about public discussion is to improve communications with your community, is to allow public discussion at your meetings, and the two items are either the 24 hours notice like what we do, or you can allow people to sign up, but they would only get the 3 minutes. The not being on the agenda, we talked about school bus routes at the last school board meeting, or the public was allowed to talk about school bus routes at the last school board meeting, which was not on the agenda, so.
Okay, since Liz had another shot, does anybody else want another shot? Okay, I just want to make sure this is fair. Okay, before we go on, we got 3 questions left up here. If anybody else has a question to submit, this would be the time to get it in. And because we still got 40 minutes left on the clock here if we want to go on. So, okay, so Bobby was first last time, correct? I'm all out of order up here, so Liz is going first on this one. Are all discussions in a board meeting publicized? That might be kind of hard for somebody that's not been on the board to answer, so.
I don't know what I guess, what I've seen that happens at a board meeting in public, the minutes are taken. If they go into a closed session, they would write down on the minutes why they went into the closed session. If they do an exempt session, they do not have to annotate or dictate anything about an exempt session. They don't have to even take any minutes, record, or anything. So the minutes don't have to be detailed, so every discussion item definitely would not be written out or publicized, but the basic bullet points of the agenda items would be written out in the minutes.
Eric?
Yeah, the board minutes are up to the secretary, and she's got the Robert's Rules of Order. She has to follow, you know, the law and rules of what has to be in the minutes. She does that. As far as going to a closed session, if we do that, it has to be a very specific reason we're doing that. It's either property purchases, contract negotiations, personnel issues. There's a very strict list of reasons we can do that. And once we go into that closed session, those discussions we have cannot be discussed with the public, because that's why they call it a closed session. Talk to your legislators about that if you want to change. That's out of our hands. That's legislated to us. Exempt sessions are also about a very specific issue. We have those conversations, and they basically follow the same rules as a closed session. You know, they dictate we only talk about what we're got it, why we went into the exempt session, but that's the way they do it.
John?
To add, Eric, again, exempt sessions are for personnel and, you know, their negotiations. Our closed session are tape recorded, but they're sealed and can only be opened by court order, if I'm right, Mr. Foster. So those are being recorded. But I mean, like Eric says, they cannot be, you know, they're not open for our discussion or for anybody else's discussion.
Bobby?
Well, I do know that the minutes are posted, and it is usually just the bullet points. They don't list everything that was discussed, but the main ideas are posted for the public to read.
Okay, next question. And we're going to start with Eric on this one. What are your thoughts on how to stop citizens from using the new track football complex as a dog park without cleaning up their dog poops? I'm just reading what it says.
Well, I guess we've got a couple options on that. We can put a lock on the gate and lock the door and keep everybody out unless we've got somebody there to monitor it. We can let our citizens use it and tell them they're responsible for their animals, and if they can't keep it up, we're gonna lock it up and nobody's gonna use it. I guess that's basically our options, unless somebody's got another better idea, because, you know, we're gonna have a super nice facility. If people don't wanna take care of it, it's not our responsibility to let them destroy it. So, you know, we need to maybe put some signs up that says, hey, you're responsible for cleaning up after your pet, but you know, if you don't want to do that, we're going to lock it up and not let everybody use it when they want to. So, I guess that's just that simple, the way I see it.
John?
I guess, you know, if it has to be, I guess you could put cameras up, but that's nothing but an added expense. So really it's going to fall onto the people that are using it to make sure it's used properly and not abused for whoever would be using it for a football field or track facility.
Okay, Bobby?
I'd agree that maybe if we put some signs up and maybe impose a fine, that might make people think twice. But if not, if we told them that it would be locked up and that we wouldn't be able to use it, I would hope that people would not let their animal do that or clean up after them.
Okay, Liz?
I would just say, sticking back with the communication, just have clear rules and put them in the newspaper and announce them when the facility opens. Granted, I mean, there probably will be people that maybe wouldn't follow, but state exactly what's going to happen when the rules aren't followed.
Okay, everybody's addressed that question. It's nice to have a little common relief. It is an important question, not to take away from that. Okay, we'll start with John on this one. Have you considered discussing a crossing guard at the high school rather than rely on kids with silver cord hours? I am not sure what that means.
The silver cord is volunteer high school kids that after so many hours of doing volunteer work for different community, different groups, they're acknowledged at graduation and they're given a silver cord. It's something Bettina Clark has started 3-4 years ago or something. But start again. Oh, I guess crossing guard.
Okay.
If I remember right, that was tried a few years ago. I know we talked about it then. There in a meeting or two ago, but I don't think, somebody said the person wasn't reliable, whoever that was, might show up, might not show up. But, you know, that's something that could be looked at again, but, you know, I mean, just like bus driving, you know, trying to find people that are able to drive a bus, it might be hard to find people that are able to do a crossing guard thing too.
Okay.
I know in the past up at the high school, there's been a parent that if they had a kid that was getting on the bus, that parent would stand up there. It wasn't really her job, but she kind of took upon herself to do it. So maybe we could get some volunteers in the community that would be willing, if they had kids that were at the school and were standing up there, that would volunteer to do that, to help out.
Liz?
I would like to get a reliable volunteer, or I would even myself I have one day off a week, I would be willing to volunteer. If there is no crossing guard, if the high school kids, or if I think there should be an adult there as well. If that wasn't working, if there was no one there to chaperone the children, then I would think that we would need to reevaluate the routes for the safety of the children.
I know we've talked to the city, we're looking at putting some additional stop signs in, crosswalks in by the high school for moving kids around. If somebody wants to volunteer, that's great. But I guess who's gonna monitor them? Do they have to be cleared to, you know, be around the students? You know, I don't know what kind of issues we run into with that. Who's liable if something happens then? You know, there's a lot of issues to look at when you're dealing with a situation like that. Granted, it's about the safety of our students, but there's a lot of other issues we need to think about. You know, if we put that person in place, and who's responsible for making sure that person is there. So, you know, we're trying to address some of these issues with some extra sidewalks, crosswalks, stop signs. But if we can get some volunteers, you know, who's going to organize them, and who's going to be responsible for them to make sure they're there every day? I guess is my question and concern. You know, not to say it can't be done, but there's some management that goes into a situation like that.
Okay, and we got two more. We had another one come in. What is the advantage of dismissing, and this is going to go to Bobby first. What is the advantage of dismissing the board treasurer? Is it a conflict of interest for the business manager to be the treasurer also?
Who was the treasurer?
It was John Barth, I believe.
And what was his duties? Was he actually?
Mr. Foster, can you maybe explain the duties of the treasurer?
My understanding is he basically looked at the balance page of the checkbook and made sure everything came in properly. I've never been in another district where there's
Okay.
So the treasurer now is the board secretary, which is Shelley. I think it would be great if somebody else on the board was also looking at those numbers. I know in the banking situation, there's always at least two of us that look at money that's always coming in and going out. Just in case you miss something, it's great that there is more than one person that's handling the finances. So I think on the board, I think it'd be great if somebody else was looking at it. Not necessarily an outside person, but maybe a member of the board that was also looking.
Okay, Liz.
It is appropriate to have the secretary and treasurer, it's not against any state regulations, to have the secretary also be the treasurer. But with our past financial situations, I do feel like more checks and balances would be a good thing for now.
I don't believe that the treasurer, John Barth at the bank, actually did anything other than verify our deposits. He didn't check our books, do anything like that. That's all done by the auditor. Yeah, it's a repetitive person in there looking at our books, but he doesn't look that deeply into them that he would know if there was an issue with something going on or not.
If I remember right, that position came from our previous superintendent, and I mean, I don't know how many years ago that was, that, you know, I really don't remember why we did that. I don't know if Eric, you can have that. But yeah, that was under his recommendation that we did that, and when Mr. Foster came, you know, he said nobody else did that. So that's why, you know, we just went with our previous superintendent's recommendation. And as far as somebody else looking over the books, school finance, you know, I've been on it 13 years. It's a learning curve for me yet. Mr. Foster has done it for X number of years, but I mean, it's more than just looking at the books and adding and subtracting. I mean, there's so many different categories and stuff that, you know, he explains to us when we ask him to, but I mean, there's more to it than just looking at the bottom line.
Okay, and this is our final question for this evening, and we'll start with Bobby on this one. I think this is a hypothetical.
Liz's turn.
Oh, who hasn't had a turn on that one yet?
No,
This
Bobby
question-
started the last question.
Oh, okay, this one goes, thanks for keeping things straight, because this is a mess up here most of the time. Ask Michelle, okay? Scrambled eggs. Okay. I think this may be a hypothetical question. I don't know if this person, well, you'll understand once I start reading it. I am a potential candidate for a teaching position at North Butler. In my interview, I share my concerns on the status of the school after reading the negativity on social media and local papers. How do you, as a board member, address this candidate?
As a board member, I would share with that person the great staff we have, the Blue Ribbon Award at elementary school that we had, the one-to-one technology that we have throughout our school. I would walk them through our facilities and show them every classroom, show them what's available, and tell them that, you know, situations like that do arise where community members, board members even, teaching staff even, anybody have different opinions, which are okay to share. That's not necessarily negativity. So basically showing that me, as the leader, addressing this person, there is no issue.
Eric?
I would say social media is a great outlet. It allows everybody to throw their opinions out there, good, bad, indifferent. The opinions of a few people don't necessarily represent the opinions of everybody or the feelings of everybody. There's been a lot of stuff flying around on social media lately about what's going on at the school. And as a board, we've gone out of our way, you know, to try to get information to the public, and there's been questions asked and people don't feel they've been answered properly. But as a board, you know, we feel above and beyond trying to get information out there. I would tell this candidate, go into the community, talk to a representative of people. You know, just walk into the Quick Stop, walk into the restaurant, sit down and visit with some people and ask them how they feel the community or the school's doing. I bet you'll get a lot different opinion than what you see on social media. I know as a board member, I've gotten a lot of comments from people that, yes, you guys are on the right track, you're doing the right thing. So it's not about what's on social media all the time. Like I said, it's a great place to air your laundry, but it's not always the best thing to do. So I would say talk to the community, do a little more research, and you know, we've got a great thing going here. You know, step on board because we've only got better places to go.
Read that again.
Okay, let me see if I can find that one. Okay, like I said, I believe this is a hypothetical.
Yeah.
I'm a potential candidate for a teaching position at North Butler. In my interview, I share my concerns of the status of the school after reading the negativity on social media and local papers. How are you, as a board member, going to address this candidate?
Well, first of all, when there is a teaching position to be filled, as board members, we have very little, we don't interview. The administration does the interviewing for that. We just, you know, whatever their recommendation is, you know, we ask questions or whatever, and go with that. But like social media, you know, you can't believe everything you read. You know, you've got to go out there and, you know, that person would have to ask questions of the administration, of other teachers, and, you know, I think that's just, that group that that is posting all that stuff, I think is a minority, you know, and then there's more good things out there that you just have to look for and see, be willing to see, not be pointing out all the negative stuff and just rehashing it all the time.
Okay, Bobby.
Well, I would share my experience with them as to why my family ended up here in Iowa, because in Utah, my kids were taking the Iowa Basic Skills Tests. There was 37 kids in my daughter's class, and my husband and I figured that Iowa would be a great place to raise our family. And when we moved to Iowa, our daughter did only have 15 kids in her class, but the most important thing is there was teachers that went above and beyond their call as being a teacher to make sure that my daughters received the education that they needed and that they deserved. They were behind in, I believe it was math and science when we moved out here. And my kids are caught up to where they need to be. My oldest one is going to college and studying in the science field. So we have a wonderful community here. And I think what makes us so great is that everybody has different ideas and different opinions. And that's a good thing.
Okay, before we close things up here, can we clarify who is running against who? And what?
They can each tell that themselves.
Okay, why don't we give them each a chance to make
Yeah.
a closing
Just start with
statement,
that
and if you guys could include that in your closing statement, that would be helpful, I think, to me as a constituent, maybe to some other people out there. So I guess I'm adding a question to the thing. So we'll let you make the closing